Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. My guest today is a familiar face on 30 Minutes and here at Radnor Studio 21. Dr. Hillard Pouncy is a good friend and a colleague. He is a public policy analyst, expert in government and in governance, as well as important social issues, and we've discussed many of them in the past. As always, welcome, Hillard. Always a pleasure to have you here.
It's a thrill for me, Rick.
But this one is really special because I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Well, I think we...
And therefore you have me at a disadvantage because I haven't had an opportunity to prepare mentally to joust with you.
I think the idea here is we want the topic to match the political landscape in a situation in which people at the top have no idea what they're doing.
I'll give you the advantage. You go first.
Okay. So we had quite a run, starting back almost a year ago, where we got to talk about the election. Mm-hmm. And it was riveting. And for you and me, I don't know about your two people watching your show. and so now it's the consequence of all that. What have politics wrought? And my assessment is that well, let me do truth in advertising. I belong to the religion of evaluation, evaluation and evidence-based policy. The idea is, it seems commonsensical, but you got to take a stand. That if you're going to spend the taxpayers' dollars, you should try as best as possible to assess how well the policies that you've bought are doing, and make the consequent adjustments. Now, that may sound simplistic and reasonable, but in the world of politics, that's actually pretty controversial, because you could also argue that the baseline of public policy should be giving the voters what they want.
What they want.
What they said they wanted. Keeping your promises as a politician. Mm-hmm.
Even if what they want is detrimental to the group or to the enterprise.
Yeah, well, I was trying.
I jumped ahead of you.
Yeah, no, this is you're going to get an A in the course, which is really a shock to me. Yeah, but you put your foot on, you've got it. But yeah, the reason some of us would make it such a firm thing about it's got to be evidence-based is that it's easy to get in trouble without evidence base. Mm-hmm. You can people may not always know what they really want, or they may find out too late that what they wanted may not be working for them. The strongest reason for going with evidence-based policy is if you use the popularity of a policy or the politics of a policy to do things. Usually the strongest, the richest, the best prepared will get what they want. They'll
Rather than discuss this in the abstract, give me a specific example, please.
You want a good health policy, because literally people will die if you have a bad health policy. There are ways of assessing how well the health policy works. In retrospect, and the Congressional Budget Office has a reputation for pretty good forecasting, for telling you what your policy is going to look like, what are reasonable expectations for your policy.
From an economic standpoint, not necessarily from an efficacy standpoint.
I'm not even sure what that would mean, right? What do you mean efficacy standpoint?
The CBO is the Congressional Budget Office.
I just said that.
I know that. And they deal specifically with dollars and cents, economics, return on investment, cost and return on investment. They also somewhat tangentially deal with the larger impact of policy on the social good.
Yeah, but
is that correct?
Sure. Okay. Oh. Yeah, let's grant that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Therefore, and as we...
So what's missing? What's wrong with that?
Well, what's missing is that with any judgment made by an expert, mm-hmm. there are always those who will be suspicious of the basis for the analysis, the reporting of the evidence, and whatever bias it may represent, which has always been the case in government.
Yeah, no, that's the...
CBO is not a neutral organization. It's supposed to be, but it's not a neutral organization.
Okay, so now we've reached the crux of the matter. Okay, and since Congress itself set up the Congressional Budget Office, in theory, they are producing what Congress says they wanted as an important not just all, but an important.
Unbiased, impartial. Is that correct?
Well, let's not use loaded language. Let's just look. We're two guys sitting around on a
Okay.
at the time Comey's testifying. So this is a real sacrifice.
But the evidence, which is
but they're giving
but
Congress.
the evidence is only as good as the credibility and the acceptability.
We're just going to have to stipulate. They're giving Congress what Congress. They're giving Congress what Congress said it wanted. And the issue here is that in a recent case with health policy, the House passed a bill about how to do health policy without waiting for the score. Now, the idea here is that you would want a government to use evidence as much as possible, and this was to me, pretty clear-cut case of a government saying, look, we're going to make policy based on other principles. And my view is that this seems to be characteristic.
I know, but you've just stripped out the politics, because the House knew when it passed the bill that it was not going to pass the Senate. And so it was a gesture on the part of the Republican Party to try to come together with something. So what the CBO did or did not, Howard did or did not evaluate it, almost became immaterial in a political sense.
Look, if at a certain point, no.
Have I frustrated you?
But to me, this is a useful exercise, because if I can get through to you, there's hope.
No, I understand philosophically, conceptually what you're talking about. I'm just trying to play it in the real world.
Yeah, but here's what
the real.
But if you play, if you play with dangerous toys, bad things can happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just making a routine observation, which is this is no way to make policy. You don't want to play with bad toys like this. And
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, and that's all I'm trying to say. That the consequence of the activities a year ago that we got to talk about, so far to me, one criticism, and you might say, well, that's a minor criticism. If that's all you got, that they don't do policy based on evidence, that's all you're saying. And my point is, well, how do you, if you were going to make an adjustment, if you were going to say, look, politics is politics. People win, people lose. Once it's over, how do we conduct ourselves? Then if you're just going to try to keep everybody in the same room talking together, then you say, well, can we agree to make policy based on evidence? That's the hope here.
Fair enough.
Now, I will go to one that's sort of my main concern. Earlier, off camera, you had mentioned climate control, the Paris Accord.
I made the mistake of mentioning climate control,
which is speaks for itself. Again, making policy without evidence,
it's a supercharged phrase.
Sure. But the one that really worried me was this one. So in the Department of Justice, for pretty much a decade, I'm thinking 2 decades, going back into the 90s when Bill Clinton was president, the culmination of this lock 'em up policy, fight crime, show people that you're tough on crime. This goes back to Rockefeller and others, Attica. We've had a lot of data on what it means when you get tough on crime. And the result was summarized by a guy named Bruce Western. He's at Harvard, but he used to be at Princeton, and we taught a class together. And so I actually sat at the feet of a masterful researcher. And so he put this little chart together. It's brilliant. And it showed the vector for crime since, we did tough on policy. Crime's been going down, right? And then the vector on incarceration because we got tough on crime. And crime was going down before we started locking people up. So if you wanted to say locking up people made crime go down, then you should have had incarceration going up.
Yes. And
crime only going down. I'm not going to get the pictures going, but the mind picture, the word picture I'm creating should do it. And it just made no sense to be locking up people because the reason you were trying to do it, which were serious crimes. Now, if you played around with the data, you might make up a better chart for the argument to lock them up. But serious crimes, the one you murder, assaults, thefts. Those things have been going down, and they weren't going down because people were getting locked up. They were going down for some other reason. We don't know why. At least Bruce did. So he made the obvious point: incarceration is a political policy, not good public policy. And so he's trying to figure out, well, why would people want to lock people up if crime's going down? In theory, they should be less afraid. They should want to spend their money elsewhere. And you could even argue if you lock people up when they get out, they're likely to then become criminals because they've got, brand X on their forehead. So he had this idea that what's been going up lately at the same time incarceration's been going up, crime's been going down. And his argument was, and it was fanciful, inequality's been going up. In other words,
inequality.
Okay. It's always the elephant in the room these days. Yep. That's why everything's going up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he pulled off his argument, but that was what he was trying to show. And it was imaginative. The headline is, most conservatives agree with him, that you don't want to waste your scarce resources on locking up people. You've got, you're going to crowd up your prisons, you're going to have to build more, it's more expensive to put guys in jail than it is to educate them. On and on and on. This is a bipartisan thing, and I'll tell you what I mean by bipartisan. Mm-hmm. Both the Democrat and Republican president both agreed you should lock people up. Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan all agreed about that stuff.
But not Obama.
And what's the difference? Well, a period of time after Bill Clinton's renewed efforts to lock him up, we got more data. And in a bipartisan way, both conservatives and liberals agree that this is not a good idea. I'll give you the best one I got. Hillary Clinton was skewered for using the expression super predator. Super predator were supposed to be these criminals, unlike criminals we've ever seen before, because, all part of that we got to lock them up because crime is getting worse, yada yada. The term was developed by a guy named John DiIulio, homeboy from Philadelphia. He used to be at Princeton, now he's at Penn. Major scholar. And he was an expert on crime and punishment. And he coined the expression, he was an advisor, Hillary picked it up, and he retracted the term because when the data was presented, he said, I was wrong. And because he was good and had an in with Bush, number 2, and other conservatives, the consensus was lock him up isn't a good idea. And the very first thing is if, he'd been waiting on ice for a couple of decades.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that argument, that particular argument, namely that the real insight is, and it's not new, and both sides have agreed to this for forever, and there is evidence to support it because you've done much of the research yourself, that incarceration, crime, is a consequence of a number of other factors.
Sure.
Breakdown of the family, poor education system, lack of training for employment, et cetera, et cetera. So let's take the money that we're spending to lock people up and put it at the
exactly.
cause
This is a consensus position.
Yes.
DiIulio
there is evidence to support that.
DiIulio hosts it. It's based on evidence. It's based on normative religious groups. So for Sessions to show up day one, practically, of his run as Attorney General and say, by golly, we're going to lock him up, was just a shock to me.
It was, once again, we've said it was set in a political environment. It was, in my opinion, it was done as much for optics as anything else, to just show the base, the conservative base, that we met what we said, we're going to deliver on the promise, and we're going to lock them up. We're going to get them off the streets and lock them up. It's rhetoric. It's optics.
See, this is what
because the same bright people, I believe, will subscribe to what we just said. You're wasting money. Remember, Hillard. I taught in a prison years ago.
You should have stayed.
I should have stayed there, and I suspect it hasn't changed. In fact, I'm sure it's gotten worse. But I know there's overcrowding. It's a waste of money. It's human carnage. I agree with all of that. So where do we go from there?
Okay, so that's a good line because people ask me all the time.
Which people?
Just stay with the script.
The same two people who watch
People
the
ask me all the time, Hillard, why do you go on Rick's show? You look like you're being tortured. and I guess it's because I really think through these little sessions, and I think I got it. I figured out a topic that Rick can't get off the hook on. He's going to have to act like a sane person, and every time you do it, I can't. It's baffling to me. No. But
it's fun.
No. It is. So let's just think through what happened, right?
Okay.
You do
the thinking. I'll listen.
We just had this conversation where we couldn't have agreed more on a smart thing to do for our system. We have both agreed, and at some point a switch went on, and you said, "Well, they're just talking to the base. Politics has consequences. This is." You can do things for your political expedient motives. Everybody does them. That's fine. The founding fathers ready for that. But there's certain things I don't think you ought to play with. And I'm going to get off my high horse, or in this case, my high seat.
I can't disagree with that.
Yeah,
but again, I don't think you're being practical because government, as you very well know, at all levels, operates on at least two levels or two dimensions.
Okay.
One is the public dimension, the perception of government, and the other is how things get done.
Okay. Usually, I sit patiently and let this go on.
No, that's not a good word.
Yes,
patiently is not. A
no.
good word.
Okay. So I thought about it because, as you know, I prepare for the show.
Yes.
Our little jokes is part of the thing, isn't it? Yeah. So as you know, I prepare for the show.
Yes.
And I decided that if it didn't work, if pleading for sane policy didn't work, then I was going to pull out option 2. Where do we go from here? How do you fight fire with fire, or if you're going to have politics as the trump card? Did you see what I did with that?
Unintended.
You see what I did with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Then what do you do about that? Okay. So here's what we got. You ready?
Are you ready?
Okay. So to me, as I get grayer hair, I'm constantly amazed at the genius of this country. It's created a flexible set of rules, the Constitution, resilient as you could ever want. I think on a global scale, there's something Americans that we did as a society. It just always amazes me. But the second part of the American Act is that unlike most countries of the world, we're a plural society. People from all areas of the globe live here, interact here, vote here, whatever. And that's almost a miracle. Because Europe, in its same amount of area, they've had some problems. This is the anniversary of D-Day. This is one example. So getting people of differing blood, as they would say in Europe, to operate more or less, except for that hiccup in 1860, is the American miracle. And so the question are the demographics of the country a challenge to the resiliency of its institutions, or were the institutions kind of a funnel that let people of all walks of life operate together? It's first day of any good American politics class. Those should be the questions you ask. My own answer is that it's the latter, that the resiliency of the country is based on the genius of the document. So with all that preamble, here's what I got. So American politics, as it brings in these new people and gets them to act and play well together, responds periodically in a kind of a lurch. It's called realignment policy. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. That's the big word. And usually we've been thinking about realignment policy in terms of how elections work, how Congress works, etc. Here is the first example of a new thought coming out of the 21st century. It's a biggie. You ready for this?
Hey, what you got? Wait a minute.
So there are some political scientists. The local one who knows about this is a guy named Jack Nagel. You ought to have him on your show. He's at Penn. Very comfortable guy, comfortable in his own skin kind of thing. And I know him. He lives over in Swarthmore. And the idea is that the current ruling regime, the Republican Party, at every level of government, local, state, federal, they're cleaning the clock of the Democrats, just winning, winning, winning. They're like the Golden State Warriors of politics, and their base, their assemblage, their group are disproportionately rural, suburban, maybe a little bit. Although I think it's certain suburbs are Democrat, Anglo, white, as they say, trending older. Not doing so well, troubled by opioid addiction, et cetera, but they have managed to align themselves, and their alliance, I'm shaky on it. It's fashionable to say, well, they're in alliance with America's wealthy elite, and they're being used. But that I don't really believe that. But let's just say they have a winning team, a winning alliance, and in the Electoral College they run the track. They run because if you look at a map of the United States after an election, everything's red except a thin line along the coast and maybe a little bit of the Gulf. But a lot of the population's along those thin lines. So how do you, within the resiliency of the Constitution, even the playing field going into the future?
What does even the playing field mean?
You start winning. You don't lose the Congress, both houses of the Congress, the Supreme Court, and the executive branch. Most major state legislatures, et cetera.
The question is, how do the Democrats start winning?
Yeah, how do they even the score? How do they get it, back to some kind of parity?
This may sound like a terribly simple answer or simplistic answer. They wait their turn. Because, as you very well know, that pendulum keeps swinging.
Yeah. Okay. No. But
the incumbent party has made all kinds of promises, most of which they won't be able to deliver on.
No. I used to think we don't have much. I used to think like you.
Oh, you used to, and then you got smarter.
Yeah. Okay. So here it is. The Republicans are so far ahead of the Democrats and you and me, frankly, in terms of the game of politics right now, that wait your turn won't work. Maybe by the middle of this century, far after we're gone, the weight of demographic change might eventually make it so hard for them that
I don't agree with you at all.
I got a better idea.
Okay.
So here's the idea. So if you, within the current rules that the Constitution sanctions, if a coalition of states, the ones along the thin edge where all the people are, pledge that their electors, no matter who won their state, this is where it gets a little tricky, legal, but tricky, would show up on at the Electoral College and vote for whoever won the popular vote. Perfectly legal. Changes everything.
Yes.
And
I agree. It does.
Right. Well, there is a coalition afoot to do that as we speak. California signed on, Illinois, New York. They just need a few more, and then they pull the switch, and that, my friend, would be what the
that would put the middle of the country at a distinct disadvantage.
Well, right now they're at a distinct advantage.
But
you win. Some days you win, some days you lose.
Okay, so how does? I don't understand the logic of this. So how do you to give one group a fair, what you would call a fair playing field, an advantage by disadvantaging another group?
I think the people in the blue part of the country feel they're disadvantaged because they have the weight of numbers. But in the structure of the Electoral College, the voter in South Dakota has disproportionate influence.
I think there's a fundamental problem with what you're proposing, because increasingly the electorate has less and less confidence in the popular vote because we've seen so much evidence.
Well, this would pretty much restore that.
Well, I don't see how.
Well, because
then the focus would be on the popular vote.
Exactly.
We've got to get the popular vote.
Exactly. And in other words,
at any cost. Therefore, someone like Soros can come in, as he's doing now in New Jersey, and he's doing in Georgia, and throwing millions of dollars to buy the votes.
Well,
that's un-American. It is.
Well, speaking of un-American, suppose you have
just as it would be on the Republican side.
Well, we have one political party that may or may not have benefited from bots and manipulations in the system we currently have. So.
No, you trailed off.
Yes, I did, because I've just made the obvious point, which is
what?
That the Republicans benefited under the way the Electoral College currently works by a shift of 70,000 votes. That's, some of us feel that's not a good way to run the government either. Well, I'll tell you.
Nobody ever said this, and you would be the first to admit this. Nobody ever said the system is perfect. It is an imperfect
It's resilient,
system.
exactly.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned about that resilience.
Right.
Because we have,
well, right now,
we've never had. I'm not going to go there. It just gets us into a whole other.
You should bring Jack on your show and have.
I'll be happy to.
Yeah.
What's his last name again?
Nagel, Nagel,
okay.
And he's part of the
university. We have a John Nagel here at Radio Studio 21.
Yeah, but I don't think they're related. You want Jack Nagel?
Okay, and
Penn.
you know him. So
well.
you can make an introduction.
You can call. He's part of the University of Pennsylvania's public outreach.
Okay.
You just call Penn.
I'd be happy to talk.
Yeah. But here's.
Is he better than you are?
Oh, way better. But here's what makes.
Why am I wasting my time?
That's what I ask myself every day. So here's what I would think, though, that if you made the issue of who should be president based on large, broad, popular themes, as opposed to, I just want to say enough to get my base active here, this slicing and dicing kind of thing. I would take my chances with that polity than with the one that's just carved up almost with surgical precision.
It sounds good in concept. I don't see how it could be fair.
All I can do,
because we've never had the impact of social media as we have today and going forward. Manipulation. Raw manipulation of thinking, behavior,
but
consequences.
Here's
never had it before.
Exactly, and we've talked about that. But here's where I think the founding fathers would.
Furthermore, with millennials, a cohort that we still don't really understand, and as they come of age, perhaps we will, and then the impact of immigration. Because you've heard this argument before, the problem in England, in France, in Belgium, and so on, is that those large groups have not been assimilated into the cultures.
Yeah, but that's what we do
of those organizations.
Yeah, but as a nation,
I'm not sure we do it very well.
Well, we've done it pretty well for 200 years.
Well, that doesn't mean we're doing it as well now, because there are different forces at work. If I heard the other day that, in fact, in Brooklyn, there are 154 different languages spoken.
You know what that means?
That's good.
Yeah,
that's rich. But something is different. Furthermore, as I've mentioned to you before,
I don't think that
I think individuals and organizations, including countries, go through periods of integration and disintegration.
No. Not like us.
Absolutely.
That one.
And we are in a serious period.
No. Sometimes
disintegration.
Sometimes you're just really, really interestingly wrong. This is. I don't even know how to get you.
You're also an historian. Why would you?
I am not. The wife is not. No.
Okay.
That's important.
The bright one in your family would, I think, agree that countries, governments go through periods of integration.
They do, but
of relative harmony as we have gone through.
Rick,
the Clinton administration, the Reagan administration.
Do the math. Do the math. If you had said, in global terms, we go through periods of integration and disintegration, you would have had something.
No, and micro as
well. No. Because other countries are autogenous and homogenous. You got that one?
Yes.
So what's there to integrate? If everybody in your country is a blood relative in, say, Hungary, Germany, and our country is based on the idea that you and I are not blood relatives.
Those countries are going through a period of disintegration because
but on a scale of disintegration among people who are very.
It's gradual. It is. You don't accelerate the process.
No. So look, Rick. Here's
it's going to take a generation or two. Absolutely.
No. Look,
I know you're the expert.
Yeah, I am. But I'll make it easy for you.
Okay.
Right now, the United States has increased its wall for who can get in, and the only issue is that on our south border there is a hole in that wall. But for all other groups coming in this country, what we've done. No other society has managed to do this, is we started to steal, we used to be in the business of stealing the middle class from every major industrial society in this world. The Koreans, the Japanese, the Chinese, European populations.
By stealing, African, we offer something better, opportunity they wouldn't have had
we would let them in.
Is that stealing?
would you let me?
No, that's a loaded word. You
It's
can't
a
say that.
narrative. It means that other countries, because they were trying to protect their homogeny, made it hard for people to get into their country.
Yes.
We've made it easy. And in the first
And in
manifestation,
doing so, we stole them.
in the 19th century, we said anybody can come here.
Right.
In the 20th and 21st century, we said only come here if you've already got a college education and you're middle class. It's a very interesting experiment we've got going. And in doing so, we leapt ahead once again of what the rest of the world was doing. Our problems with integration, they are so laughably, we don't even have massacres, okay? We don't have, you go to a baseball game, people are sitting there with their kids. They're every kind of person there. In other countries, you go to a soccer game, you take your life in your hands. Rick, this is laughable that we are in any important way having a problem with integrating our people. What's the real problem is
truly
the real problem is turning the energy bottled up in all of that loose and letting the country breathe and produce and regain its place in the world. And by slicing and dicing and tweaking and just mind-blowing numbness over, well, today we'll play by the rules, tomorrow we won't. It's a destruction of a brilliant idea.
You're just giving me a treatment for a new Frank Capra movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what we'll call it.
Okay.
But something nice.
Okay, good.
A hero.
Well, you know, I try. I show up at your show.
If Jimmy Stewart was still here, he could play the role.
He went to Princeton.
Yeah. Well, I don't know where we are now, but as always, it's been a treat.
Funny.
I really hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.